Property Pulse.
Sponsored by Espas Real Estate. Think Dubai Real Estate. Think Espas Real Estate.
Right, let's talk costs if we can. Let's break down the costs of buying a property here in Dubai. Yeah, we know that so many people are looking to buy their forever home or to find somewhere to live here at the moment. But what buyers and sellers often overlook in Dubai real estate transactions, beyond the purchase price, is the hidden costs. Espas Real Estate with us here to reveal the hidden costs and the overlooked fees that can add thousands of dirhams to your Dubai property transaction. What you need to know before you sign. Sales Director at Espas Real Estate is Danny Abraham, who's been kind enough to join us live this morning. Good morning to you, Danny. All well?
Morning. Very well, thank you. Good to see you again.
Before we crunch the numbers, what's the advice? What's the house call from Espas Real Estate when it comes to buying? You know, all too often we hear people getting off the plane. They come straight down to Espas Real Estate HQ. You go and have a look at a few properties. They go, "Oh, we love this one, Danny," and you go, "Okay, have you got the money for it?"
Yeah, I think that's obviously a big part to it. Obviously, we'll go through the costs, but a bit of advice, especially for mortgaged buyers, is make sure you're ready. Get your ducks in a row. Have spoken to a mortgage broker. Know your affordability. Definitely get a mortgage pre-approval in your hand, even if it isn't going to be with the actual bank you're going with. Have something. It just strengthens your position. If we look at Meadows, for instance, last month, the area I look after, 56% of buyers were cash. So not only are you up against someone who might already be pre-approved, you're also up against a cash buyer. And if you fall in love with that property and you're up against two competing bids of a cash and a pre-approved buyer, you're not getting that house. So make sure you get ready, know what you've got to shop with, and if you're a little hidden gem could come on. You know, everyone is waiting for that good deal, and if you're not ready, you're just making it very difficult for yourself. So make sure you do that first. Obviously, there's a slight difference in cost between a finance buyer and a cash buyer. Obviously, a little bit cheaper with a cash. For a finance buyer, obviously, you've got the pre-approval. You get that in place. In terms then, once you're going with the bank, it's normally processing fee from the bank of about 0.5 to 1% of the total mortgage amount. So that is effectively you're buying the service from the bank for their product. You also would require a valuation to be done by the bank. So the bank, let's say you're buying a property for 5 million dirhams, the bank needs to go around and make sure that you're actually, you know, that is the correct amount. And sometimes at the moment, buyers, because we are 3 months ahead of what the banks see effectively. If we sign a deal today, normally takes 10 to 12 weeks before it transfers. So we're a little bit ahead of the market. The banks are a bit behind us. So we normally try and ask for the buyer to put a 5 to 10% buffer in on the valuation. So what that means, if you're buying something at 5 million, you'd have a 10% buffer would mean that it can value 500,000 below that price. However, that means you have to have that extra 500,000 to put in.
So is that, from a bank's point of view, if you go to the bank or the lender or whatever and they say, okay, here's your mortgage, it's going to cost you that amount, is that taking into account bank fees as well, or could there be an arrangement fee on top of that?
So they used to finance the fees. They're not doing that anymore. So the fees that we're going to talks, which is normally roughly around 6%, they used to finance 70, 80% of those fees, but they won't do that anymore. I think obviously now that prices are obviously at a high, the banks need to protect themselves. We don't want to be where we were in 2018, 2019, where people actually had to owe money back to the bank to sell their own house. Okay. So that's why they strict it. Also, you know, below 5 million, it's a 20% deposit level. Over 5 million is a 30% deposit level, i.e. you need that as your own cash deposit to put down, and then the remainder is given by the bank.
Right. You and I are from the UK. In the UK, you get your offer accepted. You wait for the surveyor's report. Is there an equivalent here or not?
No, very rare that you'll do it. Some people, I honestly reckon in my 12 years here, I've had maybe 5 people do a survey, more structural survey. What you'll find though now is obviously a lot of people are going to go in and renovate these properties anyway. Yeah. So yes, a lot of Europeans will come in and ask for that, but they normally, if they're going to renovate it, they get the contractor to go around and they say, yeah, look, it needs new ACs, it needs new plumbing and electric, you're going to do that anyway. And normally a seller would turn around and say, well, do the report before. I'm not going to sign into a contract. If you want to go and spend the money, you do it. But very, very rare that they actually do that.
Okay, that's rare, but these are some of the things that crop up time and again. So a bit of a quick fire. I'm going to ask you for your sort of take on it. DLD fees.
Yep, so it's written in RERA that it should be 2.2, but that never happens. It's 4% all on the buyer of the gross amount. On top of that, there is then a 4,200 dirham admin fee at Land Department, along with a 580 dirham processing fee at the Land Department. You're then, as a buyer, always is 2% plus VAT on the agency fee. And then you have small fees like if you're getting a mortgage, whatever the amount is, let's say you take a 4 million dirham mortgage, you're 0.25% to register that mortgage at Land Department. Minor fee, but it all adds up. That's 10,000 dirhams that a lot of people are, oh, okay. That's just to register it because the Land Department need to know that there's a mortgage on that property.
Service charges, maintenance fees.
Service charge is always on the buyer. It depends on the community. Apartments, it's normally done. I mean, they're all different. EMAR will be done on the plot size. Nakheel can be done on the built-up area. Obviously, on apartments, it again depends how luxury the apartment is and what services and amenities that apartment has to offer. Yeah, if you've got one of the best gyms, 3 pools, loads of lifeguards, multiple elevators, all these things are going to cost more. So it is much more expensive in an apartment to a villa community because obviously there's less apartments within a building block. You know, if you go to Meadows, there's 2,000 villas. That's all eaten up, you know, between the villas, and then, you know, they obviously offer more things within a block that the community needs to look after.
I've got a list, and I've got about 3 points in, and we've run out of time. So we might have to make this a part 1 and part 2. Danny, can we do it all again next week through the rest of them? Just very quickly, and I'm almost out of time, just very quickly in a few seconds. I mean, just in terms of budget, people see the price of the property. What do they need to budget for the hidden costs?
Realistically, I normally say with everything involved, have 7%, 7.25% of the gross amount that you're paying. That should cover you all, even things like removal costs, you know, setup costs. You know, you've also got to be in line with, you know, your overlap of like rental. Give yourself enough time. You know, a lot of people leave it right to the end, and then like they're chasing for an Airbnb. You know, give yourself enough time, make it comfortable, and if you do it right, you should be around 7 to 7.25%.
That was part 1. We're going to do it again with Danny, part 2, next week or the week after, that's for sure, because this is a big one. Danny Abraham, Sales Director of Espace Real Estate, thank you very much indeed for your time today. And now you can go and have a word with your mate outside and say, you know, I've had to come straight into the studio because of you. We'll get on to that in a few moments' time. More from Espace Real Estate next.